Hey guys.
Hello, hello.
All right. Look at that. Look at that. How about that new intro music?
Yeah, that sounds good.
All right. Well, I'm gonna need someone to tell us that they're watching us. It says we're live, so am I? Of course, the iPad's not working here for the.
Yeah.
We're good. Okay. All right. I apologize again. We've got some tech things we're still working out. This camera we haven't figured. We thought we had it figured out last week to did this second camera.
Yeah.
Also, one of the things I realized is I think more people are going to listen to this on audio than watch it on video. So I need to make sure that we do lean towards audio as opposed to showing stuff. So we'll have to play with that a little bit, and it's going to be it's a learning process as we do these every couple of weeks. So yeah. So are you watching it, Soydan, on your phone?
No, but
okay,
it's
okay.
There's quite a bit.
Okay, so is this anybody else is watching?
I don't know.
All right, well, I just got a notice.
I just got a hi. Well, that's from you, hi guys. So I don't know about that. And Ryan Roth, yes.
Oh, okay, we got people watching. Hey, Ryan Roth.
Yeah, we got five.
All right, perfect. Let's see if I can do this. All right, well, so we've got my friend Paul Prater. Welcome, Paul.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yes, and Soydan drove down all the way from Cheyenne, Wyoming to join us again and help with some tech stuff. Soydan, how are things?
Good. People are gonna get tired of me.
Oh, I don't know. I don't think so. I don't think so. We'll oh man, what a moron I am. I don't know how to do this. We're gonna just go off the phone. So if you have any questions or anything to say on this, Paul's got some fun stories to tell today. Paul and I've known each other for, I don't know, Paul, how long? 7, 8 years maybe?
If you're going to ask me about numbers, you should have done that ahead of time.
Wow.
I suck at math. I don't know.
Oh,
a long time ago.
The mystery collection post is Vic, because I forgot Vic's an administrator. So Vic is posting. Well, good, Vic. We're going to get to some stories about you since you're not here. So Paul, you and I met over a routine called Shutterbug, if you remember right. I had emailed you and you said that you didn't have any. And I said, well, I want one when you get one. And then I think we met in Vegas at My Invention.
Yep.
And then just kind of took off from there. You've been out here a couple times. I've been to Little Rock a couple times.
Right.
We've done a couple shows together. We had our big tour, which we'll talk about. We had a big tour. I just, so Paul, tell us a little bit how you got here. I mean, not, and don't give us a smart ass answer like Soydan got last time. Yeah. He said he drove down 85 the last time. So
right. Got here in the performing world, I assume that's
well, yeah. So let me give you a little intro. Sure. You are a father of a 16-year-old.
Yep. You
are an attorney.
Yep.
You are one of the, and I think Soydan would back me up, probably one of the premier mystery performers in the world.
Thank you.
And a musician and an author. And kind of just, I mean, and you built armor and used to fight like medieval fights.
Right. Yeah, I got too old for that. That hurts.
Right. So, and last night, Paul and I, with our friends Kendall Brazelton and Ryan Doherty, we went and saw Iron Maiden. So we're a little bit dragging this morning. So bear with us. But all right, Paul, fire away. What?
All right. So yeah, in the performing world, when I was a teenager, I played in bands and always had some kind of performing outlet, it seemed like. Then I went to law school and all through college played in bands too. Went to law school, became an attorney, did a lot of trial work. Before long, I was the managing partner of a firm and I had no performance outlet. I really started to miss performing because at least trial is kind of performance.
Right.
It's performance. It's not on the same level, but you don't have any adoring fans. That's for sure.
Probably just the opposite.
Right. But my daughter was born and my now ex-wife wanted me home more. And I broke out Mark Wilson's complete course in magic that I'd had from when I was a kid.
Yeah. So Don, do you have Mark Wilson's complete course?
I don't have it right now, but I have read it.
You have it. Yeah. I think that's on every shelf.
Right.
If not, it should be.
Well, I had that and I was going through it just because I needed something to do while I was sitting at home. I'm not good at not being busy. I'm not good at sitting at home. And I went through that and thought, I like magic. Okay. But there's something, I don't know, there's got to be something more that grabs me, for lack of a better term. And I went at the same time to my library and they had 2 DVDs with The Amazing Kreskin. And I said, this is what I want to do. So that's where I started diving into mentalism. And then I found the bizarre side too. And I didn't even know any of that existed when I was a kid, when I was initially into magic. And it just grabbed me immediately. And I think probably 6 months after my daughter was born, I did my first magic show. I wrote it and found a theater and started performing. And then I guess to answer to how I got to where I am now, I'm just my personality. I had to write all my routines. I need to script. I want to re-script. I want to rewrite. I want to really think about it. And I'd shown some video to a guy named Jim Henson, who is awesome. He owned a magic shop in Little Rock and still to this day, in my opinion, one of the best magic shops in the world, at least that I've ever been to. It's shut down now, unfortunately.
What was it called?
It was called Mr. Magic.
Okay.
And
we had a Mr. Magic in Fort Collins.
Did you?
Yeah.
Well, Jim was a retired fire chief, and he just put all of his money into magic. His side story, just briefly, is interesting. He was huge into biking and did triathlons and all this. And he had a bike shop, but had a little corner where he sold magic tricks, and he was selling more magic tricks than bicycles. So he ended up opening a magic store, but just put all of the money back into the magic shop. He didn't live off of it. He had retirement. So that's why it was such a great, you could go in and ask for anything, and Jim had it. Nice. Obscure text and books, and it might take 3 days for him to find them, but he'd call you back and he had them. But anyway, I was talking to Jim and showed him some videos, and he said, "Do you have scripts for this?" And I said, "Yeah." And I gave it to him, and he goes, "This can be a book." And I went, "You think? These are just my scripts." And he goes, "Well, yeah, if it's polished and written." And I put a book together and sent it to about 3 different publishers, and Leaping Lizards in less than 24 hours, I think, got back and said, "We want to publish it." And
what book was that?
It was Maleficium.
Okay.
My first one. So all of it was kind of, I guess, by chance. I kept performing and kept working. And then on the old green boards, for those that aren't familiar, there was a website, I guess it's still out there, called the Magic Cafe. Mm-hmm. I don't ever go on it, but I shared some props I made. And then people said, "Hey, we want one of those." And that's how I got into making props. I didn't plan on doing that either.
What was the first prop you marketed?
Witch of Glastonbury.
Okay. Yeah. And you still sell those. You still make and sell those. That's one of your, that's one of your, probably your most popular. That and Freaks. Are those your 2 most populars?
Yeah, probably so.
Yeah.
And I will say, that I give full credit. Peter Marucci is the one who came up with the idea behind Witch of Glastonbury. And I reached out to him and he gave me permission to make them. And that was that. I didn't plan on making them. It was something he had shared freely on the internet. So it wasn't, something he was selling or anything. But yeah, I reached out to him. He gave me permission. And that's how that all started. It's kind of, like I say, an accident all the way around. And just love performing. So I've just kept on performing, kept on writing. And
you've had 2 other books?
I've had more than that. Well, some of them are booklets.
Right, yeah. But Embryos was the one, the big one. I mean, Embryos was your big project. And I remember I was lucky enough to get a preview copy of that and read through it.
Right.
And it's I think it's one of the best put together books on bizarre magic that there is.
Well, thank you. I had a lot of help with that. Mm-hmm. I had multiple editors who went through, and one of them's David Thiel up in Canada, fine mentalist, and he's very honest about stuff. And when I read through his comments, I was kind of like, never mind, I'm not even going to publish this.
Right. Screw this project.
Right. Yeah. But it made it a lot better with his input, and had Michael Blaine, who I know he's going to listen to the show later. He said he couldn't listen to today. He's proofread most everything I've done. Had you, and I've had a lot of people help with that. So that's how that came together, is with just help and work. But what I really had missed as far as that book goes, is I kept looking for books that went through an entire show, start to finish, and talked about how did you pick this? Why did you pick this? What failed in your show? What didn't work? What changes did you make? I couldn't find anything on that covered, it might be a routine, but just a whole show. So that was my idea with Embryos. It's 2 shows complete, start to finish. And it talks about the things that work, the things that didn't work, why I chose the pieces, the order of the pieces, and links to video to it, because I filmed a lot of my shows. And one of those started as a run in the New Orleans Fringe Fest. And so that was real fun. I got a week-long workworkshop basically of my show, in front of a live audience, really getting to test that material out.
Well, you've traveled internationally with your show.
Yeah, I have. I was lucky enough right before COVID to go to Europe and spend a month in Europe. That was a lot of fun, and had planned to go back the next year, and we all know what happened then. And that even ties into what we'll talk about with our show later too.
Yeah. Paul and I've been friends for, like I said, for 8-9 years probably. And we talked about doing shows together. We'd hang out at conventions. And unfortunately, I think the conventions we hung out together. There was more drinking than performing involved. I mean, I think Paul and I, one of the things we bonded over was we were at a convention in South Carolina, and they had fine beer. And I said, hey, I shipped a bunch of beer down here. I've got it at my room if you want to come up. So I think I put it on Facebook, and I think we had a bunch of people up, and I had shipped a bunch of beer. And the convention, we'd performed on the same stage before, but we had never done a show together. So we had talked about doing a tour, and we had a tour, I think 18 shows over I don't know, 3 or 4 weeks. And oh man, it was going to be so fun. We were supposed to start in New Orleans, Louisiana on March 22nd, 2020. And that week before, we started making phone calls. And I think on Tuesday, everybody but one said, yep, we're still on. And by Friday, everybody had said, nope.
We may have had one that hadn't yet, but
yeah. And I think that one never opened their doors again. I think, that was one of the problems is our several of the venues on this tour didn't survive.
At least 3 of them I know for sure are no longer in existence.
And that's really too bad, because I think Magic's got a big thing on TV right now. The Penn and Teller show, the America's Got Talent features magicians every week. And I think that people were wanting to see it, and some people on this tour that we were going to do opened Magic specific venues. I mean, there was one in Wichita.
Yeah, it was Wichita.
And they had a grand plan. I mean, they had a beautiful theater, and they were bringing in first-rate acts, and then they were bringing in Paul and I. Right. And but it was. I mean, their offer was sweet. I mean, their offer was very, very good, and we were going to do 3 shows there, and it just all fell apart. We've got some really rad posters. You can see them on themysterycollection.com, some of the posters we made for the show. But since then, we've gotten to perform a few times together. Once we did a show down here in the basement. I think, Soydan, you were down here for that.
Yep.
And then we did a show a couple months ago in Little Rock, Arkansas. Yep. And then we just, I'll be in Eugene, Oregon this Saturday at Old Nick's Pub doing the Mystery Collection show. And I was telling Paul when I picked him at the airport the other day, man, when I get back from Eugene, I've got nothing planned. I'm taking the rest of the year off. We sat down, and about 4 hours later, we'd booked a show for Friday, November 4th at the Labyrinth, which is where we did last time. Marcus has a really cool venue. If you're anywhere near the Little Rock, Arkansas area, mark down November 4th, Friday, November 4th. We're gonna do our show, and it's a lot of fun. Marcus has a really cool venue there. So talk a little bit about some of the places around other things you do around Little Rock. You've got the ghost tours.
Yeah.
I'm gonna interrupt before you move away from the performance or performer side of. I'm gonna address you guys with your last name so everybody knows who I'm talking to, especially if they're watching the podcast and I keep saying Paul.
Yeah.
Prater. I told him the first time and the last time I saw was that basement show that you mentioned. He has this I don't know, maybe call it Shakespearean, that this really gentle and this poetic style of performing, which I thought that was beautiful with the dark stuff he's doing.
Well, that's one of the things I've really borrowed from Paul is that he's a storyteller.
Yes.
I mean, and I've told this story several times that my first show at the Moxie, I had a magician tell me that I was boring because I only did seven tricks.
I remember that.
I only did 7 tricks in 90 minutes. But I had another woman write a comment on Facebook, said I'd have paid the same price just to hear the stories. And I think that's one of your key strengths, Paul, is that the magic is amazing, and it punches hard, and it really is a kick in the nuts, but that's not the main part is you're a storyteller, and you could get up there and if the magic failed and there was no magic, the stories are still very deep and good.
Thank you. And you know, one of the things that to kind of drive that point home, people can look later, not now. There's a piece that I used to do in my show where I did more of the sideshow type stuff, and I did Hand and Animal Trap, and I had a story that I told in that. And we used to have a great thing in Arkansas. It's come back now under a different name, but back in the day, it was called Tales from the South. It was on NPR. It was syndicated, and it was just Southerners telling their stories. I took one of those stories from my show and just told the story and got one of their Best of the Year awards, and was on NPR actually twice telling that story. So if people go on to YouTube again later, don't leave the podcast for sure.
Right.
Go on to YouTube later and look
There's
up
some real deep shit coming up.
That's right. If you look up Paul Prater Into Summer, you'll see there's two videos because I performed it live twice because I did their Best of the Year show as well. So you'll hear that story about my Uncle Avery, and it's indicative of the kind of stories that I tell during my shows, because it was straight out of my show.
So, you know, one of the things, I mean, both of our shows are very autobiographical. We tell lots of stories about family. We were walking out of Iron Maiden last night, and there was a little bit of a tuffle, would you say, in front of us at Iron Maiden between a blind guy. I mean, there was a guy who was legitimately blind, his girlfriend who was rocking out a little harder than maybe she should have.
Right.
And the people next to her didn't appreciate that. Well, it was a scuffle and everything. But as we're walking out, we're kind of rehashing how, funny it was. And Paul says, "Oh my God, I just remembered a story that I should put in my show." You want to tell that story?
Sure.
This story. So on this story, I can't believe Paul just remembered this last night.
I did. Yeah. I had an aunt who had to go in for, I don't know, a routine surgery. Let me preface it, but I was a young kid and mom and dad hid this story from me for a long time.
Understandably so. Right.
She went in for some kind of routine surgery and just said, "Hey, I can't have this, what's it called? The anesthesia."
Whatever kind of
anesthesia. She said, "I can't have this anesthetic. It doesn't work well with me." Well, they gave it to her nonetheless. And when she came out of the surgery, she thought the devil was at the end of her bed and told her she had to rip her eyeball out or she'd go to hell. And she did.
She ripped her eyeball out.
Oh,
And
wow.
so the point of the story that I was telling is that when I was a kid, I remember we'd sit at the breakfast table and my Aunt Burr would pop her eyeball out and have it roll across the breakfast table.
Right.
And I said, that story can work in the show somewhere, you know?
Right.
And the interesting thing I find about these stories too, a part of what I love about storytelling is just I don't care who's telling the story or where it comes from. I love the fact that there are 10 different versions of a story that people remember or don't remember.
Right.
Because part of my story about Uncle Avery, the End of Summer thing, I was talking about how we used to play this game where I would try to snatch a coin out of his hand and he wouldn't let me. If I could get it, it was mine. And that part of the story I will tell you is made up. The rest of the story is not 100% real. But after mom and dad, they don't come to my shows. They've come to maybe one or two, but they did come to the End of Summer deal. And mom said, "I remember you playing that game with Uncle Avery." Never happened.
Right.
You know,
Right.
so I find stories like that interesting, especially ones from when you're a kid. How much of the story is true? How much of it's not? I just love the retelling of stories. And
Right. Well, I've told that Yehudi, my imaginary friend story. I've told that, I don't know, 500 times over the last 5 or 6 years, maybe. And my mom and dad, again, they don't watch my shows often, but they did come to one. And it was funny to watch my mom remember Yehudi. You know, it had been kind of taken out of you know, the story. And then my dad, of course, remembered some other things and added to it. But you're right. It's funny what I remember and what they remember. And then now what is the story?
Did they ask you if he's back?
Oh, no, I don't. Yeah, they're afraid of the answer. Soydan, I think they're probably afraid of the answer. So we were getting on. We kind of got sidetracked, but that's all right. That's kind of what we do.
sure.
So tell us about Haunted Argenta.
Yeah, I do Haunted Argenta ghost tours. And where that started, now it's probably been a decade ago. A friend of mine, Ed Underwood, he lives out in Arizona now. If you're listening to Ed, hey, he was doing ghost tours in Jonesboro, Arkansas, which is about 2.5 hours away from me. And he was moving and he wanted me to take them over. And I knew him from the world of magic. And I thought ghost tours are the last thing I want to do. I like stage work. That's my stage. That's my space. Ghost tours, that's their space. I just, it didn't appeal to me. He kept asking me to do it. I agreed to, and it was the most fun I've ever had.
Nice.
So I'm so glad I didn't refuse to do it or say no. And honestly, looking back, frankly, that their space versus my space really comes down to fear.
Right.
You know, I was uncomfortable with the idea that, you know, they're all surrounding me, kind of close up deal. Loved it. Anyway, it was 6 years ago now. I was usually booked during Halloween all the time, and I didn't have any bookings. And I was thinking, man, I got to do something. I got to make some money during the Halloween season. And I was sitting on the back patio of a place called Crush Wine Bar with my buddy Joe. Joe owns the place, and we're drinking wine, and he looks up at the window and he goes, people have said there's a ghost up there. And it just hit me all of a sudden. I went, oh my God, if there's one ghost, there's at least 5 ghosts.
Right.
And there's at least 10 stories.
There's 90 minutes of material here, right?
Yeah. So I went down to our historic, Argenta Historic Commission is right there in Argenta. Argenta, by the way, for those of you listening, is just our downtown arts district in North Little Rock. I have to throw that out. It's the north side of the river. We're a different city. But yeah, I went down there and not knowing what they would say, I said, I want to do a ghost tour. Can you tell me creepy stories? Half expecting him to go, get the hell out of here.
Right.
The guy who runs it, Kerry Bradburn, their historian, wonderful guy. He's like, I've got a whole file of ghost stories, and gave me stories, gave me pictures.
Wow.
The ghost tour, there's no way it could have happened. This was probably mid-September, and I started running them that year.
Well, and you told a story last night about a woman that was pushed down the stairs.
Yeah.
I mean, this happened on one of the tours.
Yeah, so there's a location we go called 4 Quarter Bar, and I go to that location a lot, regardless of...
Right. Whether it's haunted or not, it's full of spirits.
That's right. I love 4 Quarter, but yeah, there's a story there about that it's haunted, and I will say I'm an open-minded skeptic, and there are some unexplainable things in 4 Quarter that don't necessarily jive with the history of where the ghost comes from, but nonetheless, there's a story that people have seen this spirit on the steps. And I take my group in there. We're going to do a seance. I've got 25 people with me. We're at the bar getting drinks, and there's a girl in the middle of the steps. No one's around her. And it looks like she gets pushed down the steps. She didn't tumble. She like flew down them, hit the floor, and we had to wait half an hour for paramedics to take her out on a stretcher.
Right.
Wow.
So for the very first Booze and Brews with the seance, that certainly set the scene. And that's been a story that I tell every time now. And, I said, if you don't believe me, I've got 25 witnesses to it.
Right. So I didn't realize that wire was right there. That cord is right there.
That's fine.
Is that all right? Okay. I do have extensions. We should have looked at that. Sorry.
No, we're good.
So
yeah, those will start up at week after next. And I've got a wonderful partner in that, Amy Jones. She runs the tours now. She came on a bunch of them years ago and had an interest in it and had a background and a degree in history and had run historical tours before. So she runs those, and I still do all the Booze and Brews, where that is the ghost tour, but we go into bars, have some drinks, and it's actually mostly about 80% different than the other tour as well, because it has the more, as I call it, the more lascivious tales of Argenta, since it's got to be 21 and up, obviously.
Right.
I don't mind telling more stories about brothels and sex workers and mutilations. And
what I'm looking forward to, I'll get to do that tour when I come out in November.
Right.
So I'm looking forward to that. We did a tour of the Seattle Underground. I don't know if you've ever done those Seattle Underground tours.
I have not.
And they have one that starts late night, and it includes booze, and it's all about it's seedier material. It's maybe R, not quite PG for the normal. So
yeah, mine I would say is R rated.
Yeah.
And that's about the worst. But yeah, when I did the research for it was a lot of fun. I ended up writing a Haunted Argenta book. And part of that is, I wanted to dig deeper into the history, but part of it too, that's kind of how you stake your territory. If somebody else wants to come along later. Well, I already wrote the book and I started the tours. So I'm the man. That was part of it, admittedly. But doing the research in it, I found so many great stories, and that's how I developed Booze and Brews. The first year I didn't do that. I just did the standard ghost tour, and I went, man, there's so many more good stories here that I can do a second tour. And I really, part of my idea behind it too, is I wanted the buy-in and wanted to help the local businesses too. It's a lot of bars and restaurants down there.
Yeah.
And so my deal was pretty simple. I do these on Wednesday and Thursday, because Friday and Saturday, they've got enough business. They've got bands. So my deal was you got to guarantee me the space for 20 minutes, and I will sell you probably at least 25 drinks.
Right.
And so, who doesn't like that deal?
Right.
So I've got 2 venues that have been longtime partners on that. One of them being Crush Wine Bar and the other 4 Quarter. And going in, I do some psychic work at Crush and then do a mini seance at 4 Quarter. And since then, I've had other businesses go, hey, can we be part of
when it stops, right?
Right. And I don't have time to add them all in, but sometimes, there's private parties or bands on off nights or whatever. So I have used other venues too, and kind of work with all of them. That's my idea, is I want to bring attention to Argenta, because I live there. I think it's beautiful and wonderful and a gem.
Well, I'll tell you, I spent a couple weeks on the road, 3 weeks on the road a couple years ago, and just driving around the country. It was August of 2020. And I just drove. I drove 3,700 miles in 3 weeks, just drove around the country, and I got to stay a couple days there. And one of the things that Little Rock is way cooler than you would think. I mean, it really is. And I know that I don't mean to sound condescending, but I've been back, and this last time we went, God, we got tattoos, we got drunk, we ate a shit ton of cheese.
Yeah.
I mean, cheese dip capital of the world.
Right. Cheese dip was invented in Little Rock. I know
and
Texans want to argue that, but there's a documentary. Look it up.
Yeah, no, I looked it up because I didn't believe it either. And they have the Soydan, they have the Little Rock cheese dip trail. I shit you not.
I remember last time Paul was here, when we're in your backyard, we were talking, or he was telling us about that. Yeah.
So when I was out there last time, we had a show, and we decided to start the cheese dip trail at like 10 o'clock in the morning with a couple cocktails and a bowl of cheese dip. And then we went to another place and had a few more drinks and another bowl of cheese dip. And then we went, I think, 2 or 3 more places. And everywhere we went, we had booze and cheese dip. And all of a sudden, it gets to be late in the afternoon, and we're sitting there looking at and like, well, oh shit, we have a show tonight.
Oh, no.
Yeah. What time is the show? Oh shit, we got to be there in like a half hour. Luckily, we had everything packed up, and at this point, we're a little bit drunk, and we're full of cheese. And then we walk into this venue, which again, amazing venue. It was so much fun. It was hot.
Yeah.
So we're drunk, full of cheese, and fat, sweaty old guys, and it made for an interesting evening. But the show went off amazing. It was an amazing crowd, amazing venue. We had a great time.
And
Our friend Jen Norman says, I remember all the Facebook posts. Yeah, that's one of my problems when I start drinking and get Facebook becomes a little bit of a problem for me. So I'm going to work on that. I think people like it, but
well, we also had a photo shoot first. Remember that?
oh shit,
So,
yeah.
Casey Crocker, I'll give him a shout out too.
Great
He's
photos.
the photographer. Yeah, he does a wonderful job, and just an all around good guy. But yeah, so drinking and hot and sweaty and just unloaded and did a photo shoot.
Oh, now I remember the posts.
Yeah. So you're also we're gonna skip all around because I've got a list here of things I don't want to forget about.
Sure.
So we talked about your books. We talked about you being an attorney. You're also a musician.
Looks like the camera went off. Just nope, back on. Never mind.
Okay. Yeah. So we're still working on this camera deal. So if the camera goes out, we'll notice. And I think we've got a quick fix, but just bear with us. We're still, for some reason, the camera right here, I don't know if you see where I'm going to point, the guest camera, it times out. And I'm not quite sure how we fix that. Soydan's looked at it, Vic looked at it, and we thought we had it fixed
Well, it
last
worked
time.
for hours.
Yeah.
So
we're
what was it,
gonna-
2 weeks ago, and now it decided not to do that.
We're going to ask you all of you out there to say a prayer for us today on this beautiful Sunday. Please say a prayer that our camera doesn't go out. But if it does, we know how to fix it. So bear
I
with us.
believe in Murphy's Law.
Well, right. So tell us about Direwolf.
Yeah. So
Put one of those in the camera and kind of show.
sure. And what I'm showing for those that can't.
There's a delay. So
Yeah,
it'll be
gotcha.
a while.
I was like, what's going
There
on?
you go.
Yeah, for those of you that can't see it, it's a sticker that I've done, and just reach out to me if you want one. I'll shoot you one over in the mail. Anyway, Direwolf's just music project that I started. I played in bands, as I mentioned earlier, when I was.
I'm gonna post a picture.
Yeah, you bet. There you go. I played in bands when I was a teenager. Pretty much from the time I was 13 through college, I played in bands as well, and that was something I always loved. And then I just, went to law school, started practicing law, got out of all of it, and really missed it. And it took COVID to get me back into it. And part of it too is, I had a bass and a guitar and a drum set and amps all sitting at the house that I hadn't used. And I thought I need to use them or sell them. So I started taking bass lessons and got back on the drums, bought an electric kit and started writing music. And so now I've got an album mostly written, and it's a blast. So it's up on Spotify. If you look up Direwolf songs, Ancestral Visions, trying to think, Deepest Cut. I'll have another one that should come out any day. I'm just waiting on Spotify to put it out there. So if people wanted to check that out, but and it's been a lot of fun because part of the other great thing about kind of reconnecting with my past with that is one of my great friends, Mike Mosley. He was in my first band with me, and Mike lives literally down the street from me, and he's got a studio in his house too. And we started trading off. He writes his music and I play drums. I write all of my music and he plays guitar on it. And so that's been really fun too, just reconnecting with Mike and old friends. Right. And the newest song coming out, a guy named Matt Kemp, friend of mine from high school as well. He played the solo on that, and we were college roommates and really hadn't seen each other in a long time and reconnected as well. So music's been great for reconnecting. And then Marcus that we mentioned, who owns the Labyrinth where we're going to perform, he's in a band, Necrosomnium. They're great. Check them out too. But me and him have gotten together and started working on the Direwolf stuff. So I think we're going to put a band together and start doing live shows as well.
Awesome. And I've been privy to some of the music before the mastering and before the working, and I got to tell you, it's very check it out. It's very fun. It's I think I think one of the first things I said is what I love about it is the kind of crunchy, kind of like before Sabbath remastered all their shit for digital.
Right.
It had that kind of crunchy. You've heard it as well, Soydan.
Yeah.
And the music, the intro music for the show today is Paul and Soydan. They put the music together 800 miles away over email.
Mostly this guy. I recorded guitars and he made it sound good.
So that is Paul and Soydan. And actually, when we get done here today, we're gonna try the three of us to put. I'm a terrible guitar player, but they assure me that I can do this. So we're
You
gonna
can play power chords. You
all right.
can do it.
We're gonna try to put down the track for the Direwolf album, and I'll be featured on an album. So that's
right.
14-year-old Paul thinks that's pretty rad.
That's right. We could knock it out, mix it today, and get it uploaded and be on Spotify in a few days.
Oh snap! All right,
We're gonna be rich. We're gonna score. I should.
yeah, we're gonna score. Have you watched the new Beavis and Butthead?
I've been watching it.
Oh my God! I was telling Paul about it. I think the new ones are some of the funny. I think they're just as funny, if not funnier, than the old ones.
He literally. It feels like he never stopped making them.
No.
Probably in his mind, he never stopped making them.
Oh, okay. Can you imagine in 20 years when he's written? My favorite one. Have you seen the one where Butthead starts taking the meds?
Oh yes, nice, but that.
Yeah, nice Butthead right now. And he takes them and Beavis says, "Do those make you feel weird?" And he goes, "No, but thank you for asking." Check it out. The new Beavis and Buttheads are very, very funny. So yeah, so Soydan, I mean, you both, as we've talked about Soydan's wife on here both last time, and Paul, you have an amazing girlfriend. She is one of my favorite people in the world. She came out with you guys to help. She came out with you to help celebrate my birthday this year, and again, you have no idea how much that meant to me. Oh, Sarah, she just joined in.
Yeah, and
so
she gave you hearts.
Yeah. No, Sarah is absolutely one of my favorite people in the world. She is one of the kindest. She is. I love Sarah. She is great. But having said that, I did hear about one afternoon the guy that was. You don't want to hear her angry in traffic stories.
Oh no!
So
she's got all kinds of angry
right,
stories.
Yeah, right. But Sarah, I'm looking forward to seeing you in about a month, probably a little over a month. I'll be back in Little Rock. So Sarah is a sweetheart, and if you in the area, give her salon. She's owns her own salon, and
yeah, she owns a salon called the Scarlet Locks that's in Russellville, Arkansas. So if anyone's around there, she is especially her focus is on women's haircuts and master colorist. Just does a phenomenal job. If nothing else, just go look at the Scarlet Lock on her Facebook. I mean, her Instagram post. She posts plenty of pictures of hair, and I think she's a true artist.
And she's performed with you.
She has. She's performed with me. Yeah. And that was yet one other thing that COVID unfortunately killed. We were supposed to start doing a regular show at an old mansion in downtown Argenta as well.
Yeah, I remember the pictures.
And we had tickets sold, we had posters done, whole 9 yards, and really went back and forth with the owners, kind of a last minute, and said, we think we probably need to cancel. Yeah, and that sucked. And I wanted to get back in there this year and do seances at the same time that ghost tours were going on, but they're doing renovations on it right now. So, but beautiful, beautiful house. They bought it and turned it into basically an Airbnb, and I'm glad they saved it. That place had sat empty for a good decade, and it's just a beautiful old Queen Anne style mansion. That's also one of the haunted stops on the ghost tour. So
nice. I'm going to talk a little bit more about Little Rock. Some of the things that have just popped back in my head. We Little Rock is kind of responsible for the birth of the Satanic Temple. Am I right? I mean, they are. I mean, State Representative Matt Rapert, is that Jason Rapert?
Jason Rapert, yeah.
Spent a ton of state money on putting a 10 Commandment memorial or a monument in front of the State House, and it was challenged. And then Lucian Graves and a couple other attorneys decided to.
Now hold up, you missed the good story in between.
Okay,
there.
yeah.
They put up this giant granite 10 Commandments monument that, I don't know, they said taxpayers didn't pay for. I'm skeptical, whatever. And the day after it got put up, a guy went on Facebook and live streamed this, and he was not making any sense, but then yelled freedom like he's Braveheart and drove his car through
drove
the
his truck
monument
right into it. Yes, yes.
and destroyed it. And the odd thing is this guy was actually a pretty hardcore Christian. He did not believe in the idea, the separation of church and state should exist. And that's why he did it. He said, our legislators shouldn't be putting our Christian values, making a political statement about it.
But that did not stop them from rebuilding it, putting it back up. So when I was out there in August of 2020, I wore my Satanic Temple shirt and got my picture taken next to it. So it's on the Facebook page. It's it'll maybe be my album cover.
But yeah, the Satanic Temple did come out there and brought the giant Baphomet statue. They had a rally out there. The Klan showed up in force, all three of them, with the rebel flag. I did think that was funny because, Lucian, one of his comments he made is, he said, "I'm glad to see the Klan is here. The ideal specimens of the white race sent here." It's three old men.
Yes.
Out there.
I follow a really fun page on Facebook that's something like, "Why is it that the whites of white supremacy are the least supreme?"
Right.
Something like that.
Well, so they made a movie.
It's called Hail Satan.
Hail Satan.
Question mark.
I do not understand how I did not get in that movie anywhere. I watched it and I'm like, every shot, I'm like a millimeter out of frame. And the funny thing, to me, it was more interesting just to see, I wanted to see who showed up, how it worked. So I actually stood with the Christian protesters, but I'm dressed all in black, but nothing, evil looking. Yeah. Not a single person talked to me from the Christian group. And I was kind of disappointed in that. I thought somebody would speak, but some of the Satanists came over and talked to me. One of them was giving out cookies, and she's actually worked shows for me as well.
Well, and if you haven't, we won't spend a lot of time on this, but if you haven't seen that movie, it's on all the platforms. It's called Hail Satan with a question mark.
Right.
And it's kind of about the Satanic Temple, which is a complete misnomer. I mean, because the Satanic Temple, they do not believe in the devil.
No.
But they get attention, and they actually, if you watch the documentary, they actually have very strict rules, and they let one of their founders go because she got a little bit rebellious. I mean, I don't want to say rebellious. She got a little bit out of line, and she made some physical threats, and she made some real inflammatory statements that were out of line with the political mission of the Satanic Temple, which is reproductive freedom, body autonomy. Sexual orientation, rights for all sexual orientations. I mean,
they use the Satanic Temple as a religion to point out the hypocrisy of separation of church and state. Well, if your religion can do it, then why can't mine?
Well,
because you don't like it.
Right. Well, and one of the big things that they've done recently is they've made abortion a right of their religion, an RITE of their religion.
Right.
And now it's gonna eventually hit the Supreme Court maybe, or at least the federal courts, where they're saying abortion is a right of our religion and you can't infringe on our religious rights because you have granted us religious status.
Right.
You can't infringe on our rights. And so it's, I guess, somebody's out there doing the Lord's work, right? Yeah. It just happens to be the Satanic Temple.
Right. Well, the pendulum swings. You want to enforce your views on others, then they're going to bring back equally as hard.
I won't turn this into the topic of this conversation, but we were talking yesterday. There was an NPR report that said that they think in the next 10 years that the majority of Americans will identify as non-religious.
Right.
And that in 50 years ago, in the 1960s, 1970s, it was up to 80% of Americans define themselves as Christian. And it's now in the high 50s. And they think over the next 10, 15 years, it's going to dip down half. And it'll be interesting to see how that carries over to politics. Unfortunately, what we talked about is and I won't make this too political. You know what? Fuck it. We won't. We'll move on to something else.
Yeah, religion and politics are two things you shouldn't discuss.
Yeah. So what do you guys think about guns? So I do want to ask a pretty serious question.
Sure.
Soydan was here for the last show, and Soydan and I heard a rumor. And we heard, I don't know if it's a rumor. We heard a pretty outlandish statement. And I'm going to put something on the screen here. Bear with me. Have you, Paul, did you ever ride bikes?
Oh yeah. I had a mongoose that I got for Christmas. And that was the coolest thing ever.
It was a BMX?
Yeah. It had the pegs on the back.
Oh,
thank you, Mom and Dad.
Sweet. Like, what did they say on Napoleon Diamond? Lucky you got pegs? Lucky.
Yeah.
So could you do a wheelie?
Yeah, I could do a wheelie. Absolutely.
Well, because Vic Nadata, our friend Vic Nadata, 2 weeks ago, bragged to Soydan and I.
Oh, wait. I think I've heard. Is it the same guy? Like the wheelie master?
The wheelie master, Vic Nadata.
I heard about this when I was 12.
Question is not just doing wheelie.
Right.
There's
He did a wheelie for a full city block.
Full city block. I heard that. I did hear. I remember being 12 and trying my best. I think I made it 100 feet.
When I asked him, I said, well, why did you stop at a city block? And he said, because I felt like stopping. He was the Forrest Gump of wheelies.
I mean, that's the best answer ever.
Right. So I just had to give Vic Nadata, and I hope he's watching.
He was. He just commented.
OMG, whatever, right? So Vic Nadata, and we have a picture that Vic drew of him doing his wheelie, and we will. Did you get a picture of it?
I'm gonna
Okay.
not that, but I'm gonna
Okay.
show the
the picture of Vic.
real
Okay,
deal. Yeah.
You know what? And I know we all feel this way. Vic is one of us.
Yeah.
Vic is one of the best dudes in the
Yeah.
entire world, and we had a lot of fun when Vic was out here. Vic and I wrote up some of my parts for my show, for my book coming out. Soydan and Vic are responsible for what you see here. We had a lot of fun, but I'm going to bring up Vic's wheelie in every single episode. And if you notice on the bottom of the screen, you can see on your phones, it says breaking news. Vic Nadata once did a wheelie on a BMX bike for an entire city block.
Find this picture.
So-
There we go.
All right.
Oh, right.
Can you post it to Facebook?
Well, I don't know.
'Cause it's not showing in the camera.
I won't want.
Well, okay. Well, it's
Well,
this is
oh,
also
okay,
this is also a podcast, so the picture's not going to do a whole lot of good.
Oh, nice.
So yeah,
No,
but yeah,
I'm
yeah.
scared of Wick though if I do that. Well, actually, we're gonna post it anyway, but I'm not gonna mention what it is.
Right.
Once
So,
that goes
once it
live,
yes.
yeah. So I'm gonna keep it for.
So
that.
Paul, we've mentioned you've created magic props, and Soydan also has created magic props. I mean, you saw my show. I use one of Soydan's routines in every single one of my shows, and I've done it for how long has that been out, Soydan? 5 years?
I think it's a little
6?
over 5 years.
Okay,
yeah.
and I've used it. I mean, I think I got one of the first copies of it, and I've used it in every show since then. I asked Vic what his dream project is, what his dream prop is, and I asked Soydan, and Vic's was Reginald Scott's Discovery of Witchcraft. He wants to do something with a reproduction or a reprint of the witchcraft. I don't remember. Soydan, what was I don't? Did you?
The
yours was your-
deluxe set for the Luna, basically
yeah.
Luna Cavalieri
That's
seance.
the lead, yes, the same.
Yeah, but it's more like a short, like a 50-minute seance.
So what is something you want to work on? What is a project? And it could be a prop that you want to manufacture or a routine or something you want to delve into.
Sure. I'm thinking now. That was a question I didn't expect. One of the things that, I did years ago that I would love to revisit, rework, and really I would love to do with some kind of regularity is the heavy metal seance. That was a lot of fun. But now, another one popped into my mind. I actually did I tried to get a grant for this and made it into the finals, but I want to do a haunted school bus. Now get this, the idea when you walk into the bus, it's got a big long table, it's got a chandelier, velvet drapes, benches, and everyone puts on headphones. And if you haven't heard some of this, I mean, there's incredible stuff they're doing now with binaural audio.
Yes,
where
yes,
it
yes.
records like, and it sounds like,
they're over this shoulder and then they're over this shoulder.
Right.
And yeah.
and it sounds like, whatever, until you experience it. I went to Transworld, and for those of you that don't know, it's a horror convention. It's a poorly named one for describing what the convention
Right.
is. It's a horror convention. And I sat in just a shipping container in a chair and put the headphones on thinking this is going to be stupid. And I about came out of that chair. It feels so real. Anyway, I want to do that with a binaural recording of a seance. So you pack like 20 people in the bus. They all experience it, but I want it 4D where the seats thump and water sprays and the whole 9 yards.
Yeah.
So it's like a 15, 20-minute experience. They go out the back, new group comes in the front, and just do it over and over and over. And my idea too was to take this as an educational thing in the off season, like to schools, and let students experience. We think that as humans, we're good at locating sources of sound. Like that's the scientific part. No, we're horrible at locating sources of sound. We're not dogs. And I want them to be able to experience this and see how much you can really be fooled by sound. So an educational component to it too. And that was something I really wanted to do. Made it in the finals, but it would be a lot to, buy the bus. And
If anybody has any questions for Paul or Soydan or for me, go ahead and post them on the Facebook. We've got about a dozen people watching. So, and I know some, I recognize some of them. Bill Barkley, we've got Bill Barkley joined us.
yeah.
And and Vic's wife just joined us. She missed us talking about Vic. You'll have to go back and watch it, Danielle. So what's upcoming? I know you've got the Haunted Argenta tours coming up, and then you've got a huge show on November 4th.
Yeah, I've got a massive star coming in. I'm intimidated.
Yeah.
After that, I really don't have anything planned. I do want to get back in the swing of performing, but my lawyering work has really taken
Well,
over.
You've made some changes in how you're no longer, you're doing it all for yourself now. You're no longer
Right.
part of a firm. And so we talked this morning a little bit. Oh, I want to get back to the performing before I hit you off. Vic and I talked this morning about an idea, and I follow this stand-up comedian, and I wish I could remember her name on Instagram. And I think I want to say she's in Chicago. I don't remember. And she has these parties as she gets these venues, and she has adult slumber parties. And they watch movies, and they make popcorn, and they have games, and they tell jokes. And we are kind of kicking this idea around. How fun would that be for bizarre magicians to have haunted slumber parties or 80s horror movie themed slumber parties? You know, I mean, and you know, you could do them at get an Airbnb, get one of the big mansions in Little Rock, or a bed and breakfast or something. You know, and have a all inclusive immersive weekend.
Yeah, I mean, you just made me think. We got plenty of abandoned buildings. We could do an immersive hobo weekend. Where we break in and sleep on the concrete.
Right. Well, you know what? There's a market.
Shit's in the corner.
Right. Yeah. There's a market. All right. So the attorney business.
Yeah.
We talked a little bit, and I asked you to come up with a couple of your most outrageous attorney stories.
Right.
And
so one of them was very early in my career. I was a young attorney, and we did work for. We'll just say a telecommunications company. So that way I'm not revealing clients. I don't think it matters. You can go and publicly look up my cases. But anyway, and somebody had severed a fiber optic line. And when that happens, especially this was in the early 2000s, you've just put tons of customers out of business. And so part of the lawsuits could be related to loss of use. So often these were hundreds of thousands of dollars in damages. So the telecommunication companies are pretty on this, obviously. They need to restore service. So they go out to where their line was severed. They start digging, and it's an 8-foot deep hole. They get to the bottom of the 8-foot deep hole, and they find a sleeping bag in the bottom. So at this point, clearly they call the police thinking, great, we've got a body. The police get out there, they get the sleeping bag out, and inside there is a shoebox. And in the shoebox is a dead cat, a little ceramic figurine of an angel, a letter to Smokey Jr., and a picture of a woman holding this cat. So somebody had gone out there and dug an 8-foot deep hole to bury a cat, and at the same time severed a fiber optic line. Now, this line was severed on the property of, it was actually a dump, like a waste dump, and it was right off their property line. So they took the picture, went around to the employees and said, does anyone know the person in this picture? It was one of the employees' wives. And what it turns out, this wasn't even her cat. It was a stray, and she fed all these strays, and she asked her husband to go bury this cat. He went after hours, unlocked the front gate, got into the office, got the keys to the track hoe, and used the track hoe to dig that 8-foot deep hole and severed that fiber optic line. So yeah, that was a pretty crazy one. Ended up having to sue him personally, and of course he got fired, and that was just a whole mess of a case over a dead cat. So that one was pretty out there.
Well, then you mentioned you were in a meeting where two attorneys kind of got a little sharp with each other. This was early on in your days as well.
Yeah, it was. That was in Texas, and there were two attorneys, one of which represented me, and one who was from New York, and had a New Yorker attitude that didn't fly in Texas, and he ended up spitting on my attorney, who came across the table, and they got into a fist fight. So yeah, I saw two attorneys in a fist fight at a deposition. I'll tell you what, it was real hard for me not to jump in too.
Yeah, I imagine. I just the idea of spitting on somebody.
Yeah,
I watched a man who was at one time a pretty prominent Greeley business person argue with his wife at the Greeley Country Club and spit on her in front of a bunch of people, and I'm like, I don't get it. Maybe I've never been angry enough, I guess, but I've never punched anybody either, so I don't know what that's like.
I've punched lots.
Yeah.
It's been a long time, but I've punched lots of people in the past. I've got much better control over my anger. In fact, Sarah always tells me, "Why don't you get mad?" I don't know. Maybe I got it all out over the years. I listen to metal. I don't know. I've got outlets for my
well,
anger.
right. Well, and we've talked. I mean, we talked about this with Soydan and Vic, and we'll talk a little bit about it. As men, we're kind of, I don't want to say shamed into talking about mental health and about that kind of stuff, but that's a big issue. It's a big issue with me, and I know it's a big issue with both of you guys. And I've got we'll make the announcement on it here shortly, but there's some big changes coming in my life, and we talked about it last night, and I'm not going to fight it. Because it's just not worth being angry.
That's really what it came down to me with stuff too. When I was at a firm before, that was one of my biggest problems, is I just felt angry a lot and just realized life was too short for that. And it wasn't just the firm, you know, I mean, that
Yeah.
the practice of law, you take on everyone's problems. It is a stressful job. I mean, one of the things I had to do at the firm, that we had an attorney who didn't show up for work, and it was unusual for him. And I, you know, make a long story short, called his brother. No one had heard from him. I went to his apartment and found him dead. And I got to be the one that called his family and, you know, just stuff like that. And then I'm having to take on the work, and it's not about the work. It's about sitting there, putting a sticker over his name and signing over it.
Right.
You know, going, God, and just thinking about that. I mean, there's stresses like that. It's just a stressful. Well, yeah, I've done counseling too.
Yeah.
And that helped a lot too, to just reframe things and think about things in a different light. So
Sarah says that she has enough anger for all of y'all. I can spread it around. All right, Sarah, I got a list for you.
Oh, don't do that. She'll start arranging hits on people.
Well, you know, it's just, you know, the last couple of years, and I've whined about this so much that it's almost not worth saying anymore. The last couple of years have been absolute shit for a lot of us. You know, we lost this tour. I lost 2 cruise ships. I lost a hotel. I lost my marriage. My 15-year-old marriage fell apart. My 15-year marriage fell apart. And then last year, you know, my basement floods. I cut my hand, and then this newest development, it's just like, fuck, the hits just keep coming. But then you have to look back, and my counselor says this, and my friend Ryan Roth and I talk about this several times a week, is that I've got some pretty amazing stuff going on in my life. I've got an amazing group of friends. I've got an outlet that I get to talk to these amazing friends, and we get to tell stories about Satan and about, you know, Iron Maiden, and about lawyers punching each other, and about, you know, I mean, we may get into porn, who knows? It's still pretty early. But it's just one of those things where the older I get, I remember when I was younger, I was like, I want to fight this. I want to fight this. I've been wronged. I'm going to stand up. And it's just not worth getting angry over anymore. It's just not. And I think it was last night when you and I were talking about that, I just was like, I just don't want to be mad about it anymore. And it was really, last night was kind of one of those points where I think this is what I got to do.
Well, ironically, the last time I almost got into an actual fist fight, it was Sarah was with me, and she's the one who actually stopped it. She got in the middle of us and was basically like, you know, looking at me like, you want this guy to punch you? To the other guy. And,
I apologize, my throat. I've been coughing. I turned off the mics, but I'm fighting something. It's coming. I know it.
But yeah, Sarah's the one who actually stopped the fight, which is surprising. I figured she would have been like, punch him.
Yeah.
But she was the voice of reason in rare situations. She's like, I don't want you getting arrested. I'm like, thank you. You're right.
Yep. So then you were going to say something, yeah.
I might be repeating myself, which won't be the first time.
Or the last.
Yeah, definitely. You know, we get caught in the moment so much that you don't see the big picture a lot of times, and you're causing extra stress, not realizing, you know, on your own. And that was my problem, that I didn't realize that, you know, you kind of bottle up everything and you deal with all these problems and this and that, and you just keep hold on to it. It kind of gathers together, and after a while, something else triggers it, and you're like feeling even worse.
Yep.
It's like basically multiplying and multiplying and multiplying. Instead, just accept what it is, and, you know, if it's not under your control, it's not under your control. There are things you're under your control. Take care of those, and everything else.
Well, I've always thought about, you know, getting in a fist fight, which I've never been in a fist fight.
Mm-hmm.
If you win, you still get punched.
Yeah.
And that's not fun. That sucks. You know, I mean, if you get in a car accident and it's their fault, good, it's their fault, but you still got in a car accident. You know, it's everything. Shit still sucks. So just try. It's just, I don't know, but I'm right there with you. So I don't get wrapped up in the moment, and it means everything. And you know, I'm gonna come out of this new situation. I'm gonna come out fine. It's gonna be, but it just sucks. It just sucks.
Yeah, you just look at like what I can do, not why this is happening. Well, it doesn't matter what it's happening. If it's not under your control, it's not under your control.
Right.
And how can I change that? Well, sometimes you can't.
Right.
And it's hard to accept that.
Right. Well, and I use the term positive problems a lot.
Right.
The stress of practicing law. Yeah, it's stressful. You know what's more stressful? Not having any money.
Right. So we were talking this morning, we were complaining about paying taxes, and I guess there's a way not to pay taxes. Right. I mean, there's a way to not have to pay taxes.
That's right. Either go to prison or don't make
any money. Right.
One of the two. Yeah.
Right. Oh, I just dawned on me. There's another time in the next couple months that we'll be performing together. Martin Luther King birthday weekend in January, we'll be performing at the East Coast Spirit Sessions in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. If anybody's ever been, they know. If you haven't been, you should check it out. It is a very, very fun, very small, very intimate, amazing convention.
And I can testify from, my perspective, not my perspective, I guess I'm speaking for Sarah. She loves that event. She said that's her favorite event. She's not a magician. It really is a great place to go.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just awesome. And then we just got back from Pose. It's the same way.
Well,
It's
and I
just
haven't been this year. I wanted to go. I know Vince Wilson's got, and we bragged about Vince last time. We'll do it again. Vince made the cover of Linking Ring magazine.
Yeah.
You know? So, I need to go to Pose. Vince I know he's got a big deal going there.
Yeah, it's great. It's it's the camaraderie of those conventions that make them so great.
Well, and we were talking about East Coast. The first year, the schedule was so packed. You had 5 minutes in between things, and it was just like, man, I came here. I want to talk to Sebastian Black. I've never met him in person. I want to talk to him. I want to go talk to Vudini and these guys. And the next couple of years, they really made it to where, we had our infamous offensive joke roundtables.
Yeah,
and those are stories that probably for another day.
Yeah, probably.
But it started at this little hamburger place, and you're telling good jokes when some people get up and leave the table.
That's right.
You know when they
or at least you're being successful at being offensive.
Yeah, right. But it was and then the next year it got bigger and worse, and I've built a little bit of a reputation for myself at that convention, and I don't know that it's.
Well, and you've contributed to mine, which is just the beer. I love good beer. I mean, what can I say? I'm sitting here drinking one now. So.
Well, so Paul and I are going to do, there are 4 performers that are going to do the parlor, the round table parlor, where we'll do our show, our 20 to 25 minute show 4 times, and they move groups in to see them. And, I'm looking forward to it. I'm going to start working on I thought I was going to do one thing, but I'm changing it. And I think I'm going to do, an entire my invisible friend routine. I think I'm going to do 25 minutes of Yehudi, of my invisible friend.
And I have a question for Prater. I'm curious about this answer. We talked about this on the last episode. Bizarre is kind of gaining popularity again, becoming really close. It's never going to be like mainstream, but even on TV.
Thank God.
Yeah,
thank God.
It's just not possible, But even on TV recent years, we see performers, even America's Got Talent, what's the other one, the British one, Britain's
X
Got
Factor
Talent,
or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, so we do see performers that they they do stuff what will be considered as bizarre, I guess. How do you feel about that?
I like it. I mean, the more that, for one thing, it makes our job easier trying to explain what we do. Trying to explain what I do is hard, partially because I don't use the word magic in most of my stuff. Mm-hmm. So how do you explain it? It's like magic, but not really. That's a poor explanation.
Well, how much do you hate the term bizarre?
Yeah, I don't like the term bizarre magic because people don't understand that either. That's what does bizarre mean? That's kind of a open for interpretation thing too. So no, I don't like that term. So what I tell people,
I think bizarre would be a great definition of what our friend the Big Icky does.
Yeah.
I mean, those kind of things would be that would be a very good representation of what Chris does.
Right.
And I had him on the previous show with you. The last. So I need to have Chris back on. I know
he's a great performer.
He's a great dude too.
Yeah.
So, but I think that would be what is. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I think that is a great representation of what Chris does. Bizarre magic.
Right. So yeah, the way I often tell it to people, if they're, really, if I feel like they're really trying to get an understanding, I say it's like a magic show, but without tricks.
Right. Well, I worked really hard, and I know you helped me on this, and Aiden, and I think I floated it by you and a couple other guys. My line for my show is an evening of intimate mystery and illusion. And that, I think that tells a bunch of things. Mm-hmm. It tells there's going to be magic-ish. There's going to be mystery and stories, but it also kind of says, don't bring your fucking kids. Don't bring, this isn't for 4-year-olds. This isn't for 5-year-olds.
Right.
When it's an intimate evening,
Yeah. My website and my business cards say mind reading and storytelling. Mm-hmm. So I think that sums it up pretty well. But then people do go, mind reading? Mm-hmm. What do you mean? Can you really read my mind?
Well, my business card, I have Master Magician on there, and I've thought about changing it. I also printed up some cards for our dear friend Zeke Powers, which Chris, if Chris is watching, that's the old show. Used to be every time we mentioned Zeke Powers, we had to take a drink. But that says occultist.
Right.
And I just thought, what a cool, but I can't give those to everybody. So they say Master Magician on there. just to let people know, and then it gives me a chance to explain. But I don't know a better way to describe this when we're trying to sell shows.
Right. And I've got a decent, well, at least pre-COVID, had a decent corporate market as well.
Right.
So I've got to walk a fine line there. I don't want
Right.
anything that's offensive.
Right, you're not going to put a
South.
cultist or
Right.
yeah.
Now I do make it. I mean, my website, you can still look at it and get a feel for what I'm doing.
Right.
So it's not like it's a shock or a surprise. I don't have two different websites or anything. But and I do ask typically, what would people think about a tarot card? And if they say no, it's not in there. Most of the time, none of that's in there. But often it's the same routines that are reworked.
Right.
You know?
Well, and I've had my last 2 shows. I did a private show for a gym here in town that donated to my Dancing with the Stars deal, and I did a private show for an investment company the other night over at a country club in Windsor. And in both shows, a woman in each show got up and left. One left when I started talking about the idea of talking to spirits, and one left when I talked to a spirit, and it bothered them enough. And I was upfront about what I do. I was upfront, and both shows were absolutely PG, absolutely PG. They're shows I had done for a 13-year-old birthday party. They're PG. They're not, and people have, misconceptions about entertainment.
That's the difference, I think, from the main, regardless of what your routines are, the magic is in the show. I think that's the main difference between the mainstream magic and.
Well, I guess what we're doing, if I have
you.
2 women getting up and walking out, 2 people in
You're doing right, I think.
well,
in my opinion.
then we're invoking the emotions that we're trying to invoke.
Right.
I mean,
Exactly.
nobody gets worked up about Ambitious Card or Sponge Bunnies. It's amazing. Oh, wow. But when you're really getting a gut reaction out of somebody and you're touching a vein, maybe we're
Well,
doing okay.
my ultimate goal, which on the seance that I'm still writing, is I want to make people uncomfortable.
Mhm.
Not in
Sure.
I don't want them to get scared. I don't want them to feel disgust, but I want them to feel uncomfortable, at unease. And, that's kind of like, I keep saying bizarre, but
Yeah,
for the lack of a better term.
that's what it is. That's what it is. Unfortunately, that's what it is. And I don't want to call it storytelling magic because then that seems like the shit you're doing on a Sunday afternoon at a library. I mean,
or David Copperfield or
Right.
something like that.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, there are stories, but I mean, to me, what the real heart of it is, I think magicians get too into, and I'm sure it's not just magicians, it's any area, get too into putting labels on things. To me, what we do is entertainment. And
Right.
if it's not entertainment, then you failed.
right.
I don't care
No.
how good your magic is. I don't care how big your name is or your costume or your set. If you're not entertaining, you failed.
Well, example, last night we saw Iron Maiden. The band that opened for them was called Trivium. I thought they were terribly boring. Every one of their songs, I'd never heard of them. So it was brand new to me. Every one of their songs sounded the exact same. They turned it up. It was way too loud. And it was, and I'm not,
Paul, you sound 75.
I'm just going to say, I'm not the get off my yard old guy, because you thought it was too loud too.
I did think it was too loud. My problem is not the volume level per se. It's a bad mix.
Well, that's what I meant.
Yes.
It was distorted and too loud to where you couldn't. It all sounded
It was a
jumbled.
mush.
Well, in
Yep.
their defense, even though I heard the band, but I never heard of any of their songs,
Hey,
that
Nick
could
Bur-
be the sound mix.
Nick Birch just joined us. Hey, Nick.
Or sound
Nick.
engineer, I guess.
And I've seen Trivium once before
Yeah.
too, and it was similar. The sound mix was better, but I also told you it's weird. I've noticed this I go to a ton of concerts. I've noticed it seems like now all of the opening acts have to have poor sound mixes and play in the dark.
Yeah.
Because that was the same thing with Trivium.
Well-
I mean, the lights they had were the ones shining directly in my eyes. I was wearing
Right.
sunglasses the whole
Right,
time, and you
right.
still couldn't see the band.
Right.
When you say nowadays, like, are you talking, I'm going to say after COVID or?
Well, a little bit before that too. It's just
Okay.
I've noticed this fairly consistently, and I mean, I'll give some more examples. We went and saw Ghost and Mastodon last week or 2 weeks ago, and Ghost sounded phenomenal. Mastodon sounded too loud and muddy in the mix, and I've seen Mastodon and Primus before. That was a weird bill too, and same thing. And maybe it's just Mastodon's sound mix. I love Mastodon; they're one of my favorite bands, so I'm not downing them. But they sounded
know.
loud, muddy, and hard to hear.
Sometimes it feels like on some shows, like the houses don't care about the opening acts and
Right.
they're focused on the main act. As long as they sound good, they're like, whatever, we'll just go with that. And if the band is not happy with that, too
Right.
bad.
Right,
I guess,
Well, but then Maiden came out, and Maiden was tight.
It
on
sounded
point.
good on your recording on
dude, it
Facebook.
was-
I couldn't believe it.
It was
You could
clear,
hear.
it was
You could hear
clean.
every one
Yeah.
of Bruce Dickinson's words. You could make out the words.
You could hear the notes of
Yep.
the solos.
Yep.
It wasn't just.
Hey, speaking of
You
Iron
could hear
Maiden,
on that video, yeah.
Ryan Doherty just joined us. Hey, Ryan.
You know,
Oh, Ryan says it was totally dark. He thought the spotlights might have been broken. Yeah. So, but where I was going with this, I didn't mean to talk about Maiden, but about being entertaining.
Sure.
You know
Yeah.
that you could have the best technical card skills. Is that entertaining? I don't know.
there
So,
was a, speaking of Magic and Iron Maiden, I have to mention that because that was, oh gosh, I'm not going to be able to remember the exact year, but there's a show. It's I believe one of their DVDs. They have two stages, like an L shape. There's a main stage and another stage. They're connected together. One stage is full of, it's like a magic show. They have like guillotines and a
Okay.
bunch of stuff. I don't know if you guys ever watched
I
it.
haven't seen it. I'll have to look for it.
I wish I could remember. It's probably on YouTube, I would
Okay.
imagine. So they're performing, but Bruce Dickinson or the band members, they go to the other stage, they chop one of the band members' head off. They put a some kind of sleeve on Bruce Dickinson, and they penetrate a knife through his arm and starts bleeding, and it's like gory,
Nice.
but
I'll have to look for it.
it
Last
was like
night,
the best show I ever seen. I wish I could. They would do that again. And
last night Bruce Dickinson
Watch
wore a
it.
backpack with flamethrowers.
oh wow,
Yeah, and he
Yeah,
had
just-
flamethrowers out of his hands and just shooting fire everywhere. And we were on our way out, thinking about wonder how that meeting went down. Hey guys, I got this idea. Call our insurance guy.
Yeah.
But it was such a great show. It was such a great show, and it was entertaining. That's the thing. And then bands like
Yeah.
Ghost. I think Ghost. I am so happy that bands like Ghost are how huge they're getting. And we talked about the gatekeepers, or they're not metal. They're not. You know what? Fuck you. Ghost is an amazing songwriter. He's an amazing singer, and the musicians he puts together. It is one of the most entertaining shows I've ever seen.
Well, and the show is, aside from Iron Maiden, I can't think of another band that does shows like that. I mean, pyrotechnics, fire, lasers, like the
Kiss.
big,
Kiss,
does,
you know,
you're right.
but the difference is I've seen Ghost twice in the last 4 years. I've seen Kiss 8 times in the last 20 years. It's the same show I've seen of Kiss every time. The two Ghost shows I've seen completely different.
Yeah.
Iron Maiden last night changed sets 6 times.
Yeah, at
and it went
least.
from this old Japanese style,
The big pagoda and
yeah,
towers and
to a battle scene for the trooper, and then
cathedral.
a cathedral, and then Aces High they have this bomber, this jet fly out, and so it was amazing. It's about-
literally a jet, or not a jet,
plane,
I guess
yeah,
a
I'm sorry,
propeller
propeller
plane.
plane,
It's
yeah,
a Spitfire or something like that.
Yeah.
Ghost is like this living thing. I mean, their YouTube channel, their shows,
Oh, yeah.
everything, wherever they are, it's not the same thing, and it's like I said, it's like a living thing.
Yeah.
You're like witnessing, like
Storyline,
yeah, it's like a TV show,
characters. Yeah.
but in
Yeah.
real life.
yeah.
So it's
And what is amazing to me is
project.
that this Mariana Cross. I don't know if we're going to tip any secrets here. Mariana Cross is a huge hit amongst kids now. The song Mariana Cross, and
TikTok. It's all over
TikTok.
TikTok.
Yep, yeah. Because
Huh,
of some,
okay.
yeah. And I'm hearing from people about this band Ghost. I'm like, yeah, Ghost. Is that the shirt you wear? One of the 9 Ghost shirts that I have that I wear. Yeah, yes. And it's just it's branching out into mainstream. And what I love about it is all he sings about is the devil. I mean,
Yeah.
it's but it's this poppy kind of, kind of cool, like easy listening kind of vibe. But he's saying amazingly terrible things, but it's so poppy, and it's just there was a thing, and I don't know if it's real or not, that on October 29th, 28th, whatever that Saturday is, that he's supposed to be Saturday Night Live's music guest. And that was going around for a long time on the Ghost channels on Facebook and Instagram. And I don't know how real it is, but if you could get Ghost, if you can get that band on Saturday Night Live singing Mariana Cross.
I don't think they'll do Mariana Cross.
Well, my kid and I talked about, what do you think they would do?
I don't know. I think it would be something more like Spillways.
Rats,
or-
maybe?
Yeah. Well, I think they would do something off the new album, surely.
Well, they'll have 2 songs.
Yeah. Oh, gotcha.
So-
Yeah. So they'll do something older. I think they would do maybe Spillways, because that one's hard to, there's nothing
Yeah.
offensive in that
Yeah,
song.
yeah.
It's also a good
Or Watcher
hook.
in the Sky, maybe. Watcher in the Sky is a
Yeah.
pretty poppy. So
It
anyway.
is.
So Soydan mentioned earlier that we talked about this last time about Bizarre Magic, and one of the things Vic and I talked about is in Magic, Are we good on the camera? Yep.
Yep.
Okay, it's lasted, so it hasn't cut out. We've been on for a while, so good. We mentioned we talked about what are in Magic. You've got cups and balls. You've got ambitious cards. You've got you've got staples. What in your mind would be a staple of Bizarre Magic? If you had to describe Bizarre Magic in a couple routines.
So
we came up with some. I'll tell you some of the ones we came up with.
Uh-huh.
Vix was Ashes to Palm.
Yeah.
Spirit Slates.
Yep.
Gypsy Thread.
Yeah.
What are some other some routines that you would think that would fit into our style of Magic that if you wanted to give somebody a crash course and like, Di Vernon says you learn 6 tricks, you can travel the world. What tricks routines could you learn that were
right. I personally, I think a strong base in mentalism helps.
yeah, well,
You know.
well, and so drawing duplications,
Right.
Living Dead tests. Our friend
Yeah.
Mark Striving just wrote an amazing book on living dead tests. So
Haunted Key is number one
Haunted
to
Key.
me.
That's
I mean,
what the reminds. So yeah,
to me, that's the number one biggest one.
you're
Pendulum,
absolutely right.
pendulum work of any kind.
Yep.
Now due both to Joe Diamond and Terry Tyson in particular, I'm seeing a lot more bottle pendulums coming back, and those are extremely powerful. I've used those for years in shows too. I think they're great, and most people, even magicians, don't understand.
Well, years ago, is it the Mean Old Man? Is that the Lovecraft story about the Mean Old Man that collects?
Yeah.
I read that story and I'm like, oh my God, I got to make bottle pendulums. I got to find a way to make these pendulums move. So I made a bunch of and if you haven't read it, read it. It's about a man. These kids break into this old man's house and he's got a bookshelf full of bottles that contain souls of people that have wronged him.
Right.
And I just thought, what an amazing story. And so yeah, I ordered Terry Tyson's book. I've not met him. I'm looking forward to meeting him in South Carolina in January.
Yeah.
But his book on spirit pendulums is and bottles is great.
I need to read it. I've got it. I got it at Pose. Met him at Pose. Wonderful guy. It was awesome to meet him because Terry's work inspired me early on when I got back into Magic. I got Seance Magazine, and I think it feels like he wrote half of it. He had lots of contributions and really quality.
I'll reach out to him.
stuff.
It'd be fun to have him on come talk about because he was a worker.
Oh yeah.
I mean, he was a worker, and not. If I'm right, it wasn't necessarily all entertainment work.
No.
It was shut eyes.
Right. I think so.
So what are some bands? We're back to some music. So you've seen, we talked about what your favorite bands. What are some bands or some acts that you have not seen that you want to see?
Oh man. There's one that I've been listening to lately that I've really been into digging called Sons of Arrakis, and they're
Yeah, somebody told you. Did you tell me about that?
I don't think so. I don't think it was me.
Somebody else. If you're out there, somebody just told me about this and said I would really dig it.
Yeah, it wasn't me. This is the first I've talked about it, but they're from Montreal, and their album's just great. It's
Somebody
metal
just
stuff.
no. I'll have to go through my text. Somebody just told me about that. Hey, Soydan, welcome back. Paul had one for our staples of Bizarre Magic that I can't believe we didn't think about. Haunted Key.
Oh, none of us mentioned.
None of us. No, and he's absolutely right.
And I do it.
Right.
too,
So do I. So do I. But he's
Wow.
absolutely right.
Wow.
That is one that is an amazing. I've got a friend who's a business coach and she's doing some business training and personal coaching. And I had lunch with her last week and taught her the Haunted Key and as kind of a mind over matter routine to tell her students and her clients, So, but you're absolutely right, Paul. I'm sorry, Sons of,
Arrakis, Arrakis.
God, I wish I could remember who told me. Somebody just told me that you got to check this band out.
Yeah, I mean, I could have a whole list of bands I want to see, but thinking about ones I haven't seen is the harder thing because I go to so many shows. I try to catch anybody I really, really want to see. I've also felt like I've been in a little bit of a musical slump lately, so I was happy to find them where I've been listening to the same bands. I mean, a lot of them have come out with new albums, but I've been looking to branch back out.
What was your first concert you ever saw?
Van Halen?
I say on your own, as not when your folks took you to.
Right. Well, my folks never took me to a concert ever, not once. They were not big music people.
When we talked about that, I mean, you took Ruby to see Ghost, Mastodon, Korn, Evanescence in 48 hours. They saw those 4 bands in 48 hours.
Yep.
Wow.
Yep. Absolutely. And it wasn't even 48 hours. It was 2 days apart, but one night
Right.
was
So,
the next.
so 20 hours, 25 hours. Right.
Yeah, that was a blast getting to take my daughter, and I appreciate that she's now getting into music more aligned with me. Before it was K-pop, and there's no way I'm paying $300 a ticket to watch K-pop.
Yep. Well, I took Ren to see Ghost, and it was the Twin Temple full beat Ghost, and we got to do the meet and greet. So I got a picture taken with my kid next to Tobias, and it was just one of those things where it was her first theater show. It was her first,
Right.
she'd been out here to the Stampede and some garden theater kind of shows and stuff at the Civic Center, but it was her first arena, I shouldn't say theater, arena show, her big production. And I think I might have spoiled her. I mean, you see Ghost as your first, you're going to go see another band, unless it's Tool or Kiss or Maiden, you're going to see another band and be like, well, where's the flying shit? Where's the explosions? Where's the.
Right. Well, it was the same, it was that same tour that I took Ruby, same deal with my daughter. And I was just talking about going to the show, and Ruby piped up and said, I want to go. And I went, really? You want to go to Ghost? And then Sarah was, like, yeah, take her.
Yeah.
I don't have to go.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, same thing, took Ruby. And I think that was the turning point.
Yep.
And she's smart and sneaky in her own way. Cause she's the one who said, Daddy, let's go to Macedon and Ghost. I'm like, it's 6 hours away. I don't know if I want to drive. And well, the night before, Korn and Evanescence are playing 1 hour away. And I'm like, all right. 2 shows, that might be worth the trip.
Right.
And we had a great time. It was, last minute, Sarah, she just needed to work more and stayed home. So it was just a daddy-daughter trip. And, I know that's a lifetime memory for my daughter too. Yeah, my parents would have never taken me to anything like that.
My mom took me as a kid to see the Statler Brothers.
Part of that though is I think I'm briefly wandering into old man thing here. Part of that's just our age. When we were kids, the parents are like, go do your thing and leave us alone.
Right.
That was more the attitude. And now it's like parents are, this is my baby.
Right. Right.
So I think a lot of that was just our age. I'm not casting any dispersions on our parents. That's just how parenting was.
So Van Halen and Van Halen.
Alice in Chains was supposed to open and they got snowed in and could not make it. And at the last minute, they brought a local Memphis band in. And I've never seen more hatred for an act on stage ever. This band was not good. They were getting booed. And the guy up on stage said, I don't see any of you other motherfuckers up on stage. And I mean, anything that could be thrown was thrown at that guy. I mean, it was, man, Charlie Pride.
I've seen Charlie Pride at the Greeley Independent Stampede. Tina just commented that her mom just took her to see Charlie Pride. Yeah, I saw Charlie Pride at the Greeley Independent Stampede as a kid. Yeah.
Well, that was my first one. And I actually saw Van Halen 3 times on that same tour. And after that, I was, it was every show I could see. But yeah, my parents were, they were pretty strict on me. So I didn't get to go to shows when I was younger. So that was senior year of high school.
Yep. I was a sophomore in high school, and my first show, I saw Big Daddy Kane, Ice Cube, and Public Enemy. Fear of a Black Planet had just come out. America's Most Wanted had just come out at the old McNichols in Denver. And, man, I was awesome. I mean, Ice Cube had just left NWA, and I was hardcore. I mean, I've talked a little bit on here about my rap band. And,
I know.
And we were going to try to recreate. I mean, Paul was one of the first people to talk about bringing back Homeboys at Home, and we were trying to recruit Post Malone.
Right.
we were trying to
think we could do it.
We were trying to tag Post Malone in all these posts to get him to come.
He's a super cool dude.
I know.
I wasn't expecting.
I know.
I watched the video on YouTube on Norman guitars.
Okay.
And he was playing. I don't remember what guitar, but he's trying one of the guitars, and he's a good guitar player too.
Well, have you seen this? The set he did during COVID, where he did the Nirvana covers.
Yep.
He's really good.
Yes.
Well, he started, I mean, back in junior high or whatever, he was a singer-songwriter on guitar.
Yeah.
So he actually can play an instrument.
I really feel ashamed of myself. I kind of feel like I judged him by the way he looks and the music he's actually doing.
Right.
Which not my kind of music at all. But he's
and there's
he's
a Beavis and Butthead, one of the Beavis and Buttheads where they do the Post Malone video, where he's wearing armor.
Oh, yes.
Yes. It's very fun.
I actually love Post Malone.
I know.
I really do. And then he did that duet with Ozzy. Not duet, but whatever.
Yeah.
Collaboration.
Yeah, which is very funny because a lot of people, that was their first exposure to Ozzy Osbourne.
Yes,
Right?
I know. I read the comments and I'm like,
Yeah, and it's like, yeah.
Who's this old guy with Post Malone?
It's very nice that Post Malone's bringing this old guy out of,
he's going to be famous now.
Yeah.
Well, a tie-in with Bizarre too. I don't know if you saw this, but the Dybbuk box, the way that whole thing started was an eBay deal. I mean, it was a guy made it up.
Yep.
But now it's gained this status as it's haunted. Tie back into stories earlier, how they just keep. Well, the guy who owns it, Post Malone, went and saw it and asked if he could touch it, and now he's convinced he's been cursed by the Dybbuk box.
He touched it on one of the Ghost Adventures, on one of the what's
That's
that
when it
guy's
was.
name?
I can't remember. That's who owns it.
Who's the guy? The black hair. He has the museum in Vegas. Zach Baggins.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Zach Baggins.
That's
It was
where
on-
he-
yeah.
that's where
it
he
was in the
handled
Zach Baggins Museum. I've been to the Zach Baggins Museum, And I've been in that room with that Dybbuk box, and they have a glass case over so you can't touch it. So they took the glass case off and Post Malone could touch it.
Right. And then he wrecked his Bentley after that,
Yeah,
and something else happened. And then his plane, went down, and I'm worried they were gonna. Yeah, he thinks it's all because of the Dybbuk box. So
Yep. Well, you know what? Good for us.
right.
Good for us.
That's right.
I'll put that in the news every other week and see how well that helps us. My bands I still want to see. I think top of the list is I really would want to see Neil Young. Neil Young's been a big thing since I was a kid. I grew up with my dad listening to Crime Sales, Nash and Young, and Neil Young and Crazy Horse, and I had a couple opportunities, but I think that day's probably gone. I don't know that Neil Young's going to be performing anymore. I did get to see Ozzy and Sabbath on their last tour, and that was. I'd like to see David Gilmour. I think seeing David Gilmour would be. I think he's one of the best guitarists in the history of the world. It'd be fun to watch him.
I do want to see now. It's somebody I've seen, but it's not quite the same band now. I want to see this reformed Pantera.
Yo, we talked about that. We talked about this. Yeah, so Zach Wild's going to play Dimebag's role, and he's going to use all the same equipment. We talked about this last time.
Right.
He's going to use all Dimebag stuff, the same guitar tech, same everything. Yeah.
I'm just sitting here flipping through my my favorites, and it's like, this is going to be an off one that you probably wouldn't expect. Katy Perry. I want to see Katy Perry live. She's come to Little Rock a few times. I've been out of town every time. I really like Katy Perry. I want to see her live. I think it'd probably be a great show. I would love to see Post Malone too. Actually.
Yeah.
He wouldn't be on my list off the top of my head. I had to think to get to those, but I did see Kesha, and that was probably one of the worst shows I've ever seen, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I was pumped about Kesha. I love Kesha too.
Now, so in the last couple of years, you've seen Ozzy, and you saw you went to the big baseball field state show.
Yeah, the Motley Crue, Def Leppard, Poison,
Joan Jett.
and Joan Jett. We missed half of the Joan Jett's set thanks to StubHub. Don't ever buy tickets from StubHub. We literally couldn't get our tickets. We had to go and buy another set of tickets at the venue. So we lost or we missed half of the set because of that, which we ended up paying less than in closer seats. So that was good. But and Poison, actually, I do like some of their songs, but I didn't expect to enjoy them live as much as I did. It's kind of
I've read that consistently that Poison was stealing the show on that tour.
they are live. They're
How bad
so
was Motley
good.
Crue?
Motley Crue, no, they were not bad.
Oh, they weren't? Okay.
No.
Because I'd heard some mixed reviews.
I mean, so here's the thing. Vince Neil, he's not singing all that great. But their show was great still. I mean, everybody Mick Mars, I don't even know how old he is. He looks like he just came out of his grave and did the show. That guy, the way he's playing, blew my mind.
Okay.
The energy that requires to do a tour like that, I think people not understanding
You
that.
should have seen Bruce Dickinson last night. And the guitar player, I don't know which one it was. It
Yannick
wasn't.
Gers.
Yes. They were all over the place. It was awesome. And the thing that amazed me the most about Bruce Dickinson last night is he got the notes. They weren't the same as the recording, but he was up there. You wouldn't know the difference. And you could understand every word he was saying.
Yeah.
Well, and on top of that, it's especially acutely noticeable to me being in Colorado at altitude. He's running around and can still sing.
Right.
I walk up your stairs and I can't breathe.
Right.
That's one aspect of concerts I think people don't understand. Being a hobbyist, playing guitar, just by sitting playing guitar, when you play like something heavy or fast, I'm sweating.
Yeah.
These guys are out there doing this again and again and again and again. They don't understand. It's like you have to be like an athlete.
Well, Maiden was on stage for 2 hours last night.
Yeah.
And Bruce Dickinson was running around up and down those stairs, flamethrower, fighting Giant Eddie. All these things, and never broke.
I was one of the people. My wife will confirm that, bashing Vince Neil.
Yeah.
I can't say I hate him, but I don't really care for him too much.
Well, he never was a good singer.
Yeah, but it works. It works in Motley Crue,
It does.
He's getting better because when they first started the tour, he was, everybody was saying, "Oh, he's reading the lyrics from this," which he was. But now, when we went there, I don't remember him looking at screens and all that. If he did, I didn't catch it.
Right.
So he is actually trying to get better, and he looked like he's actually losing some weight too, which, that was another thing that which I was upset too because we were gonna go see them in 2020, and then because of COVID, postponed it. And everybody was saying, "Well, whole year passed in 2021. He still didn't, lose any weight. He still can't remember the lyrics." And 1 year later, again, same thing.
Yep.
Still no changes.
Right.
So everybody was like, "What's going on?" And I was like, "Well, no matter what, I'm gonna still go see it." And that wasn't the case. He is trying. I can say that, but like I said, and it's coming from somebody.
Right.
He changed my mind when I went to show.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely.
Good. Well, last night was an amazing night. It was so much fun. And actually, I took a page out of Vince Wilson's playbook and started talking to the woman behind me. And she and her husband own a tattoo shop and have an oddity store. And and so there may be some collaborations in the future with Singularity Tattoo in Wheat Ridge. So I'll give them a plug out and shout out, I guess. And I'm going to send them some information this week and try to get some stuff booked up with them. I haven't gotten into Denver market yet. And I don't know why. I don't know why. I don't know if it's
Denver market. I believe he will do good because there's not many
no, and I don't
performers like you.
I don't know that I don't have a reason why. I don't. Well, granted, I've talked about this a bunch. I don't do a lot of shows in Colorado.
Yeah,
I believe there's nothing more narcissistic than relying on your friends and family to feed your hobby or your job. And I do well when I'm here. We sell out and it's fun and I like it. But so I may reach into the Denver market.
Denver will be different.
Yeah. I'll reach out to these folks. So Paul, there's a couple other things we have in common. We both collect oddities and bizarre objects and haunted objects.
Right.
And we've been. I think you found a book at the bookstore, one of the bookstores down here when you were out here, maybe the first or second time. You found a book that was a kind of a prize in the oddities kind of thing, and you found it in an antique store in downtown Greeley.
Right.
And so you brought something for me.
I did.
And I'm going to have you. We're going to post pictures. So I don't know if you can take a picture of this and post it on and then. So this is, I know this is the hard part.
Before you talk about it, all the pictures I'm posting are on the Mystery Collections Facebook page.
Yes.
Apparently, you cannot post it on the live stream. I just found out.
Okay.
So everything we were talking about that we're saying that we're posting
is on the Mystery Collection Facebook page. Okay, thank you, Soydan. So this piece is, you'll have to, I know that a lot of people are going to be listening. Yeah, it's crazy stuff's falling out of it.
Yeah.
I know a lot of you are going to be listening to this, so you can check this out on the Mystery Collection Facebook page and see pictures of what we're talking about here. So, Paul, tell us a little bit about this snowman and describe it for those that are listening that aren't going to see it. It's a
little ceramic snowman, and part of its broom is broken. It's covered in dirt and soot, and there's a reason why. So, this is probably.
Oh, hold on, we lost a.
What did we lose?
No, we're back on now. Okay, it just went to the screen for a second.
Probably, I'm guessing this was about a year ago. I go on Tuesdays or Wednesdays, once a week. I go and take my daughter to dinner and just hang out, have daddy-daughter time. And we were walking around looking for mushrooms. They kind of live out in the country, and so I like to mushroom hunt. They have chanterelles, which, if you know anything about mushrooms, those are prized edibles, delicacies. Just to be clear, these are ones you cook and eat, not for getting you high or anything. Anyway, we're out looking for these mushrooms, and I noticed that the neighbors across the street had bulldozed this building, and I went over there to look at where they had bulldozed it. They'd put it up into a pile and basically set everything on fire because it's out in the country, and there were tons of these burned, charred figurines in the pile. So I picked them up and gathered a bunch of them, and here's the reason why. So I lived... this was my ex-wife's house. I lived there, obviously, when we were married, and we had a neighbor that moved in across the street, and it was just this old couple, sweet old lady. She was a nurse. She was a Sunday school teacher, just super nice and sweet. And yeah, I'll get another beer. Thank you, Paul. And her husband was kind of hard to know. You rarely saw him. He was out every now and then, but mostly he spent time in his man cave, his little shop that was back in the backyard. Well, come to find out, it was pretty crazy. This sweet old lady who's a nurse and a Sunday school teacher shot and killed her husband. Everyone was in shock about why would she have shot him? Why would she have killed him? And here's the story behind it. He had his man shed out there, man cave, whatever you want to call it. He had his couch and his TVs, and he had all of his ceramic figurines, and he'd sit out there and smoke cigarettes and drink beer, just have a fun time. But part of the other thing that he did out there is he watched porn, and this was extremely objectionable to his wife. Well, his VCR broke. So then he ended up getting on, Dish Network or whatever, what have you, a porn channel. And she saw that he had that, and she got mad about it and went out there, told him to get out. She had already threatened to divorce him, and he, begged to stay, and he would quit with the porn or whatever. She told him to get out, and he said he wasn't getting out, that he would just stay in his man cave. So she went in and got a pistol out of the bedside table, went out there and told him again to get out, and he said no, so she shot him in the leg. Well, he was bent down picking up cigarette butts from, she come out and flipped over his table, and he was picking up cigarette butts and beer cans when she shot him in the leg. And when she did, he leaned down and she fired again and shot him in the head and killed him over porn. And so,
I knew we were going to get into porn. I
Yep.
said it earlier.
You did say it earlier. I didn't even think about that. I did not even think about that tie-in. So yeah, when they went to sell the house, they basically just bulldozed his shop and everything that was in it and set it on fire. So these figurines were, they witnessed a murder, so to speak. And that's where this figurine came from. And I collected several of them, and several of my friends in the world of bizarre have one of these.
Nice. Well, that
It
is.
looks like there's some soothing on it.
Oh
there
yeah.
it is,
Oh, it smells like fire.
Yeah, it was set, like I say, it was in a pile. They just set everything on fire, and that's why some of them are broken too, and they're kind of brittle because they've been fired again, I guess. But she ended up getting 16 years, but is eligible for parole in December, and that will be 4 years.
Wow.
And even 16 years was not that much.
How old a woman? I don't know if you
Late 60s.
then.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's just a crazy story. And this was all right across the street. I remember when it happened because it was such a crazy story that, it went international on the news.
Yeah.
Of course, sensationalist headline, wife kills husband over porn.
Right.
But yeah, I saw it immediately and went, holy crap, I know where that is. And all the news articles are basically filmed in what used to be my front yard, because they're filming across the street at her house. And my ex-wife was interviewed by the news. She was a witness, for the trial. And it was a crazy story, that being that close to home,
Right.
Right across the street in the country, in the middle of nowhere. It's all old people on that street, very peaceful area. So yeah, so that's what you got, is a piece of murderabilia, in a manner of speaking.
Yeah. Right. So what are some of the other things in your collection what are some of the more odd oddities in your collection?
I have a mummified possum. Yeah. That one was the story behind it's kind of fun too. I was at an antique show, they'll have them for a weekend or whatever. And I saw a very good friend of mine there, Davis Tillman. I just love Davis and think the world of him. But he owned an antique shop, and if there was an oddity, he was going to buy it. And I'd already seen Davis, and then I saw that possum. Yeah. And they wanted more than I wanted to pay, but I knew if I didn't get it, Davis would. So I had to buy that possum. So I got that. That's a fun one. I've got several shrunken heads. I'll say several. I've got two, but one of the coolest pieces I've got, I love it because it came out of, unexpected and out of nowhere. Me and a friend went to an estate sale of a doctor, and there wasn't much left. We got there on the second day, and most of the good stuff was gone. But there was a bone dagger, an African bone dagger with emu feathers and beads. And I looked at it really closely, and I'm like, either I'm crazy or that's a human leg bone. I bought it. I took it to actually Davis, the guy I was just talking about. He confirmed, yep, that's a human leg bone dagger. So I've got one of those from Africa. That's a cool piece too. And unfortunately, I had it on my mantle, and the door got shut hard, and it fell off and broke the tip off. But it's a clean break, so at least I can super glue it back. Yeah, right. I've got giant rings, the giants that toured around. Those are still available online here and there. So I've got a bunch of the giant rings, two-headed ducks. I've got all kinds of weird, fun stuff.
What are some things you're looking for? What are some things you'd like to have in your collection?
Oh man, at this point, I'm trying to downsize my collection. I'm trying to think of,
well, what is one of those things, like a possum? If it pops up, it's going in the collection.
Oh yeah.
What are some things that are just,
I got you. Well, human skull, definitely. I don't own an actual human skull. I would like to have one of those. Oh, a funny side story in relation to all of this though. I had a fetal skull, and I used to Airbnb my house a lot, and
it was in a rap video.
Yeah.
I want you to tell that story next.
Yeah. I'll get to that. But I Airbnb my house one weekend, and the fetal skull was gone. And I'm like, man, why would they steal a fetal skull? I mean, I know it's cool, but why would somebody steal it? So for 4 years, I've been telling this story about how somebody stole my fetal skull. And just last weekend, I opened this little cabinet I had, and it was in there. I had taken it to an event and forgot to put it back on my shelf, and
snap.
thought it was stolen for 4 years.
So
And,
you stole it.
Yeah.
and that tells you how I've got too much crap that it
Right,
could be
right,
missing
right.
for 4 years, and I don't even know that it's somewhere else in my house.
So a human skull, those are, I mean, we there's an oddity store here in Greeley that we visited yesterday, and they had a couple human skulls. So
right. The problem with oddity stores is they know what they're worth. I'm a deal finder.
well, but you know that I looked at those human skulls, and I have one. You know, I have one in my collection, and I paid a lot more for it than the ones on the shelf yesterday.
Okay.
And I bought mine from the Copper Hammer, and it's yeah. So I guess it's just, you know, it's all relative, I guess, but they do know what they're worth, and I think. And, you know, we'll get into. I'm having a woman on in November named Madeline Hagen, and she is a medium, and I'm going to have her do a reading on the skull and see if she can tell me a little bit more about it.
That's
So
awesome.
I don't want to tell a lot about the. I don't want to talk a lot about the skull. But yeah. So a human skull. What are some, anything else that pops up? I mean, you've got Ouija boards.
I
You've
do. I've got so many of the things that I wanted to get. I would like a jackalope just for
Yeah,
old
yeah.
time's sake.
See,
you
I
know?
want a taxidermy rattlesnake.
Yeah.
You know, in strike pose. I want, you know. So
Yeah.
you're in the right place. There's jackalopes. We should go. We could go find one. I'm sure this afternoon here in town.
Yeah, there's all more of the taxidermy stuff
Yeah.
is what I'm wanting. I've got some old taxidermy stuff, and some of it's, you know, in pretty bad shape. When it gets old, especially they used to stuff them with sawdust, and those just fall apart. You know, the acid in the wood just eats them apart.
I follow a thing on the Instagram called Bad Taxidermy.
Oh yeah, that was
Do
hilarious.
you know
yeah.
about Bad Taxidermy? If you don't know it,
Fox
find it.
with a Google eye?
Yes, and it's terrible. It's terrible taxidermy. The other one I follow that's really funny is Sucky Tattoos, and those are really funny too. So
I guess oddities becomes odder.
right. Well, I got a piece that I showed you when you got here. I got a piece last week that I've been something that I've wanted. I have a David Koresh from his music publishing business. I have his business card. I have a David Koresh business card. I really would like. I've got a hand of glory. I would like.
I've got a hand of
You
glory.
know, I'd like something mummified. I'd like something Egyptian. The problem you run into, and again, I don't want to talk too much about this before I have Madeline on the show. You run into the ethics of human remains.
Right.
You know, I saw this really fun post on Facebook last week that said, "Hey, countries of the world, Great Britain is really busy right now with the Queen's death. Go get your shit back from the British Museum."
Right.
You know, and you just, you know, some of these things are you know, you just wonder. It's a felony to own indigenous people remains. And if I were to find out somehow that my human skull was indigenous, I would absolutely give it back.
Right.
But you just the ethics of that's maybe a bigger topic for another day, but the ethics of owning some of these things. I have a shrunken head. It's not real.
Right.
It looks authentic.
Some for mine,
And
not
for
real.
the stories, guess what? It's real.
Right.
But it's just the ethics of owning it, and my human skull is real, and that I had some real ethical like back and forth when I got it.
You know, I also feel though that we're just so far removed from death that it seems, I think in the modern world, less ethical. But think about human remains would have been commonplace even 200 years ago.
Right.
You know, I think we're just so far removed from death. We don't see it. We don't experience it. We don't bury our own family members. We don't, you know, none of that happens anymore.
You know, I don't know if I know I've told this in shows. I don't think I've told it on this show. You know, I'm gonna wait. I want Madeline to do a reading on this, so I don't want to say anything more about my skull. So stay tuned. She'll be in at the end of November, and we'll have the skull here. But we can talk about it off air. I just he was a person.
Right.
And I remember opening the package and holding it and looking at this and having this very weird like feeling of that this was a man who was in love.
Yeah.
And this was a man that was scared. And this is a man that was happy and celebrate a birthday. And a man that felt all the emotions that I feel every day for the last 47 years. And it just kind of hits you a little bit hard that you're like, man, you know, I mean, what would this guy have thought that he's going to be on some asshole shelf, you know? And I don't know. So it's a
So,
bigger
yeah.
topic.
So-
Yeah, so
I don't know if you guys will agree with me, but another thing that, you know, when we own something that is real, I'm gonna say as a, you know, like a human remain that
Mhm.
we're talking about. Some people, when they find out that we're magicians, they feel like, you know, we're not taking it seriously immediately. There's
Yeah.
the stigma, you know.
well, I would say, you know, I am a performer. I'm a collector first. I mean, I you know, my collection is I put more into my collection than I have to my show. I'm a book collector, and you know, and so yeah.
If you're a magician and then you have on stage, let's say you have the, you know, human skull, all of a sudden it kind of like, oh, he doesn't take it seriously. He doesn't have the respect for it, and they have
Yeah.
no idea that's not the case.
Well, you know, I think you both. I don't know if I know you both have heard or know my friend Calvin Von Crush, the occult collector. He has a human skeleton that belonged to a woman, and
did he show it on his when he was on his
Amazon Prime show. Yes, yeah, he
no
talked.
on your on Conversations.
I think so.
I know you guys talked about it. I
He's
can't
been
remember.
on twice. He
Yeah.
was on once by himself, and then he was on once with Jules. And we're gonna have him back. I talked to him just the other day, and I'm trying to get the two of them to come down and do it in the basement.
Okay.
This is I'm gonna learn how to do this over Zoom, but it's just cooler to have people in my house. You know, I mean, this is I don't know. It's just more fun.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing about human remains that I find strange too is it's my skull, it's my body. Why can't I just leave that to someone? But you know, we don't have mechanisms in place in the U.S. for me to be able to leave my skull to someone.
Right.
It's probably it is illegal.
Yeah.
I mean, every state's different, but you can't go and have an undertaker go, yeah, I'll cut his head off and deflesh his skull
Right.
and give it to you. There's not a way to do it. It's my skull. Why
Right.
can't I give it to
I
somebody?
don't know if I've told you this. I know my good friend Ryan Roth, his mom passed away in May, and watching him kind of handle and with the most grace that a person could have, handle all of the things that needed to be handled, it made me start thinking about what I need to put in place. You know, because I have a 16-year-old. Something happening tomorrow. I don't want the 16-year-old to have to take care of this. And I thought long and hard about it, and I've decided what I'm going to do is I'm going to be cremated. And I've got these little vials that I collect grave dirt in, and I want my ashes, my remains, to be divided amongst all those bottles. And at my party, which isn't going to be a funeral, it's going to be a party, I want all my pals to get those. And they get to take them with them, and because I don't belong buried in the hole in the ground in Greeley, Colorado.
Right.
I don't belong buried in a hole anywhere. I don't belong in a park. I don't belong my ashes dumped somewhere. I belong out in the world with my friends and my places. So everybody gets to take a little vial of Paul with them. And if you want to put it on your bookshelf and say, that's my buddy Paul, or if you want to take it to a place where we drink beer and throw rocks in the river and dump it in the river and that's your place, awesome. But that's where I belong. I don't belong in under a big rock with my name on it. And so you're right. You know, we don't have a lot of ownership of ourselves afterwards. You know, so but everybody gets gonna get a little bit of Paul.
You can give cremains away.
Yeah.
So there's your one
Yeah.
loophole
Yeah.
way around it, right?
So and Keith Richards in his book talks about he took his dad's ashes and mixed them with Coke and snorted them.
Right. Dad's always part of him.
Yeah, yeah. Maybe that's why Keith Richards is 950 years old and will never die because he snorted human remains.
Right.
So we've still got about a dozen viewers. If anybody has any questions, we're kind of wrapping up on time, and we've got a record to record here. We've got some jams to lay down.
That's right.
So if anybody has any questions, so Soydan, what do you got working on? What do you got going on in your life right now? What?
I have a project that I cannot talk about. I'm completely busy with that right now.
Good.
And then after that, I have some. I'm making. Well, I stopped making them, but the Ouija boards or Oracle boards for Aiden. I had to stop it. The secret project is for Aiden also, but I can't talk about it at all.
So
So
Soydan has some Ouija boards that he's made, some spirit boards he's made for me that are Mystery Collection specific custom. They're on the mysterycollection.com under shop.
and then after that, I'm probably gonna start making some stuff for my Etsy page for Christmas ornaments is gonna be one of the things.
If you look it through the Mystery Collection, we posted some last show, and then he's
these
got
ones we
this.
talked about last time.
Yep.
So I'm gonna start working on these later on. I'm not happy with a few things about it, so I'm gonna try to correct those. But my main focus is gonna be Evil Eye Workshop, the woodworking part of it, and it's probably gonna take me all the way to New Year's.
Okay. Well, I've got coming up in 2 weeks from today, I'm going to have Rob Walker, my friend Rob Walker down here. Rob is an author, playwright, an actor, a director. He's written for several comedic magazines and Onion type magazines. He's very funny. He's been a detrimental part to helping me make my show more theatrical. So he's going to be down here 2 weeks from today. I'll be in Eugene, Oregon, Saturday. I'll be there Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday if anybody's out in the area. I've got some Peter and Karen, some friends out there that I'm going to hang out with. And then I'm home for a while, and then I'm debating on how long. I'm testing Paul and Sarah and seeing how long I can stay out there. I'm tempted to drive out.
Move in.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what, Little Rock's really cool, and as I mentioned earlier, and I'll delve more into it. I hate to be vague on it, but the plans have changed, and some things are changing in my world in the next couple of years, pretty drastically. So
Housing's real cheap.
well, I know, and housing's not cheap here. When I could sell my house for, I could buy half a Little Rock, maybe. I don't know. But so and Paul and I made an offer on a business this morning in Little Rock. It didn't work out, but we I can probably say it.
Yeah.
Paul and I almost bought a tattoo shop in Little Rock, Arkansas this morning. So, and then we actually stayed up till 2:00 in the morning last night talking about the possibility of another. Little Rock's not out of the possibilities. It's a very cool town, and I like cheese. So we'll be there on November 4th. We'll have tickets available sometime in the next couple of weeks. I got my poster guy working on a poster, and we'll have that. And then he's got the tours, the ghost tours, and I'll be out there for those. I am going to start offering up some ideas for corporate or personal holiday shows. If I'm going to be around, my travel for Christmas has been modified. My travel for New Year's has been modified. So I'll be around. So yeah, if you're interested in some unique entertainment for any group of any size, reach out at the Mystery Collection on Facebook or mysterycollection.com. Or if you know me, give me a holler. So Paul, what do you got coming up? We talked a little bit about your tours.
Well, the tours are pretty much all of my time coming up in October. Then in November, Maxwell Blade is a magician in Hot Springs, does a great show, has a beautiful theater down there. And he's talked to me about doing a run. So I'm going to see if maybe I can fit that in November. It may be December. I don't know. I've got a cruise coming up in November for my birthday. So right now I'm just in this period of transitioning more work away. I've got another attorney who's going to start working with me. Interviewed him the day before. I shouldn't say interviewed. He's an old friend. Met with him the day before we came out here. He's going to take over work. So what I'm hoping is the next time we talk, I'll go, yeah, I've got lots of shows planned now.
Nice.
It's just legal's been taking up all of my time. When COVID happened, I lost all of my shows. So
well, and maybe maybe 2023 is a good time to bring back from the dead the Black Magic Tour, the two Pauls of the Apocalypse. We had one. Our last show, Soydan, was going to be in Cheyenne, Wyoming.
Yeah.
The last show on that tour was going to be in Cheyenne, Wyoming at the train depot. Our friend John Pools.
At the time, I never met with Prater in person, so I'm like, I'll get to meet him, and then COVID happened. Well, I still got to meet him. What, a year later?
Right.
I think it was.
Yeah.
But yeah, I know. I was excited about.
And I'm going to make fun of Paul and brag about Paul a little bit before we wrap this up.
Okay.
Paul's written some of what I think are some of the best books in bizarre magic, and Sarah made this joke when she was out here for my birthday party that, we go to these conventions and that Paul's a big deal at these conventions. And we talked a little bit about this last night, kind of making fun of ourselves. And I mean ourselves, not just you and I, but other magicians.
Right.
We have this idea that these magicians are big deals. We have this idea that because a lot of them think they're big deals. Mm-hmm. And I am so lucky, and I say this sounding like a little kid. I am so lucky to consider those big deals in magic some of my absolute best friends. The fact that I get to bring up and make fun of Zeke Powers every time I get a chance to bring him up. I mean, Zeke is one. I mean, and Paul and our friend Aiden. We all know Aiden really well, and I think Aiden's probably the premier bizarre magician in the country right now.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know anybody else that's got the width or the spread that Aiden Sinclair has.
Right.
And I know he's a friend to all of us, and it's really fun to be part of a community where we're all the, and I won't put myself in this group, that they're all my friends are the the top of the game. And I get to call them and say, hey, what do you think about this? What do you think about this? I mean, the last time you were here, we stayed up and we came up with this ex libris routine, which, man, when you see this, fuck, you guys are going to shit. It's so good. It is so good. I mean, the premise of it, Soydan, is so good. And it's called ex libris. And we're hoping, I mean, I don't know. And it may not be a marketing thing. It may just be something you and I do because it's that good. But it's just the idea that I get to bounce these ideas off the people that are the big deals in this. And it really is pretty awesome. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So, all right, Soydan, parting words.
Take care, everyone.
Mine are just thank you for having me out here. I have such a good time every time I come down here. It's I really do think of Colorado as my second home now, and I love being here. And thank you so much. I
Well, you
appreciate
got.
Paul.
I think we're gonna start calling the room down here the Paul Prater suite. So what Sarah said when she stayed here last time, you know, the room is covered, and I don't think there's a picture online, and maybe I'll post one someday. I've got a wall covered in Ouija boards. I've got an original Crying Boy painting, or not the painting, one of the prints hanging above the bed. I've got a cabinet that was a trophy cabinet out of a Christian high school, and inside it's got mummified hands, it's got Ouija boards, it's got, I think, a couple clown dolls. And Sarah mentioned that she had some weird dreams the last time we were here. What was, oh, I don't even want to put the words in her mouth. Something about vaginas and Asian people. Do you remember that? Do you remember her?
Vaguely, but not enough to tell.
Yeah,
the story.
no. You know what? If I come out October 30th, I'm scheduled to do a show in October. I will have Sarah on the show on Sunday, October 30th.
There you go.
Because if it works out, you'll have a party that night before, so Sarah will be in prime form Sunday morning to talk about.
I have an idea actually for that story. You can do what is, I'm not gonna mention that you are planning to do every episode for the podcast, like the bike story.
Oh yes,
you know,
yes.
Just like that, you can
Yes,
put it there.
and we haven't done that yet on the podcast. I need to put that on the hidden tracks is what we're going to call it, and you'll stay tuned for that. So again, all this will be on on your podcast networks. I was so excited. I'm a real podcaster. I guess I'm on Stitcher and Spotify and Apple and all of those. So go over there and subscribe and just give us so you can.
You haven't posted about it though. I don't think on.
I did. I
on the
posted
page.
one. I just posted one.
Oh, did you? I
was
didn't see it. Okay.
Yeah. So that's it, guys. Next 2 weeks from today, we're my friend Rob Walker, and
Hey, and you can let them know once the song we record today is on Spotify and Apple and all that. You can post links on the mystery collection.
All right. I'll put that on there as well. So, all right, guys, we're gonna listen to that song real quick before we. All right, guys, take care, and we'll see you in a couple weeks.